Thank you, Laskin Corla. Minister, I want to ask you about the role of the Irish Defence Forces now in response to the Ukraine refugee crisis. As part, we have obviously a major financial programme of support, a humanitarian programme of support, but a major logistical programme of support, Minister, as we expect more and more people to come to Ireland. I'd be glad if you could outline the role of the Defence Forces in that as you anticipated.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy. Ireland is continuing to provide strong political and practical support for Ukraine as we continue to assert Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The Government has stated that Ireland will play its part in assisting people from Ukraine and has already lifted visa requirements to allow people from Ukraine who want to seek safety here in Ireland to do so as easily as possible. The European Union has agreed a package of €500 million in military assistance for Ukraine, while Ireland has constructively abstained on the lethal equipment element of that package. We are paying our full share, approximately €10 million, and our funding will go to non-lethal supports. The Taoiseach recently confirmed that the Government will provide a further €10 million in humanitarian aid, adding to the other €10 million announced a few days earlier. The Government acknowledged the scale and scope of the potential implications for the state of the war in Ukraine and agreed that a coordinated whole-of-government response will be essential to minimise those impacts. Discussions have taken place in relation to the humanitarian response required to welcome people from the Ukraine fleeing the war and seeking protection in Ireland. Very significant planning and preparatory work is taking place across government to provide accommodation and other essential supports to those who have arrived here already, as well as the large number of further people who are expected to arrive. This includes preparations on healthcare and education and social welfare and so on. The Government agreed a temporary crisis measure may need to be taken in order to deliver a response to this humanitarian emergency at the scale that's involved and with the short time frame that we have to operate within. As part of these discussions, there has been engagement with my department and the Defence Forces on land use and temporary shelter options. Logistical support that could be provided by the Defence Forces is also being explored. The Defence Forces, as always, stand ready to provide whatever assistance is necessary and possible within their capacity and capability. But it's an evolving situation, Deputy, in truth, but the Defence Forces and the Department of Defence are very much involved in a cross-departmental response that's being assessed on a weekly basis.
Thank you, Minister. You know, across my constituency, I'm hearing stories of children from Ukraine joining schools. Different schools, different classes across the constituency, and it's great to hear that that's happened so quickly for them. Indeed, as I dropped my own son off this morning, there's a young boy joining junior infants, high-fiving the kids around him, and had settled in nearly immediately. But so I hope that persists, because there is going to be a huge traumatic change for people arriving here, and every element of logistical support that can be provided to them to minimise that trauma, the trauma of moving country, the trauma of what they've left behind, the trauma of who they've left behind, to make that transition easier and smoother for children and for their families more broadly is positive and welcome, and it's good to hear about the cross-departmental work. And I suppose the best, in my view, with respect, the best way to think about it is, of course, from the perspective of the person arriving, what do they need, how quickly can it be given, what is the package of documents that they need, where do they need to go, how easy can all of that be made, and of course, as you mentioned, the Defence Forces have the opportunity to contribute to that logistically.
Thank you. Get a chance to come back in.
No, I mean, look, this is a wartime situation, you know, and we need to get into that mindset here to make the kind of contribution that I believe Ireland wants to make to these efforts. So far, considerably more than 2 million people have come across the borders from Ukraine into the EU, primarily Poland, but also Hungary, Slovakia and Romania, all bordering Ukraine, and of course Moldova, who are under huge pressure as well. Those numbers are likely to continue to increase. You know, if this war continues, we could see somewhere between 4 and 6 million refugees coming out of Ukraine into the European Union. Ireland wants to and will ensure that we are part of those efforts in terms of accommodating Europeans who are fleeing war. And that potentially means tens of thousands of people coming to Ireland at a time when we have lots of pressures of our own in terms of housing need
Thank you,
and so on. But I believe we're up for that, and we're already putting in place solutions that can ensure people are safe and welcome
Way
here.
over time, definitely.
I believe we're up for that too, Minister. And, you know, when you look back at the major logistical operations that we've had to create and operate successfully, you think back to the vaccination programme and how quickly that had to be mobilised and rolled out very, very quickly from a central, you know, from a standing start. We have the capacity to do these different things. We have something of a head start because we have relatively small numbers now, but that's going to increase over time. And the cross-departmental work is going to be absolutely crucial to that. And every effort that can be made to activate land use and accommodation and temporary shelter is a big part of that. So we welcome your comments today, Minister, and thank you for your work.
Yeah, I mean, can I just say that, you know, for me, it was very reassuring to see both Minister Humphreys and Minister McEntee at the airport yesterday, meeting refugees as they came in on planes into Dublin Airport. And instead of actually being asked to fill out forms and show their visas and show their passports, they were being given toys and mobile phone chargers and SIM cards. And you know, this is the message that Ireland wants to send, that we are acting and preparing and resourcing in solidarity with a country that's being torn apart by brutality and an illegal war which is undoubtedly responsible for war crimes and crimes against humanity, in my view, which will be proven to be the case in time with evidence gathering and so on. While this war continues and the refugee flows continue, Ireland needs to play our part in that, and we will.